Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming and joining us tonight for this webinar on mental health and its impact on the youth voice. This evening, YMCA South Midlands and Makewell have come together to explore how mental health shapes the way young people see themselves, express their thoughts, and engage with the world around them. At the YMCA, we work closely with young people every day, and we understand the importance of creating a space where every young person that we support feels like they are empowered, feels like they're able to gain access to mental health resources that help them build their confidence, resilience, and just help them hone their authentic voice. We hope that tonight sparks a conversation that not only informs you, but also educates you and also encourages you to have these discussions in your own communities, in your organizations, and your professional spaces. Before I continue and introduce our speakers tonight, we just have some general housekeeping. All questions would like to be kept till after the discussion has been done. And if you have any questions, you're free to write in the chat. And after the conclusion of the discussions, we will be able to answer them for you. And also, please try and stay muted throughout so there will be no disturbances when we start. And for tonight, we are joined by two brilliant speakers who bring both professional expertise and also real insights into the conversation that we are having. I will start by introducing Jen Birch from YMCA. She is the head of resident support here at YMCA South Midlands and has spent more than 10 years supporting young people through some of the most challenging periods of their life. As a qualified counselor, I'm currently studying for their bachelor's in science in psychology with counseling. She combines professional expertise and a deeply centered approach in creating spaces where young people not only feel safe, but empowered to move forward. Thank you, Jen, for being here with us. And also, we have Jane Lambert. She is a nurse, an award-winning leader in the health sector, with a passion for mental health and neuroaffirming support. Her work has focused in helping individuals and families understand anxiety, ADHD, and autism by using practical and compassionate approaches that are accessible and realistic for them. Through her work, she empowers others with simple and effective strategies that support their well-being in everyday life. I'm thanking our two speakers for coming in today, and we're incredibly excited to hear from them. And without further delay, we hand it over to Jen to start tonight's discussions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Iffy, and thank you everyone for coming tonight. It's a real honour and pleasure to be able to be with you all and just to kind of have this discussion alongside Jane about things that are really important to us. Oh, Jane, I think you're muted.
Sorry, I turned it off, didn't I? I knew I'd forget to turn it back on. Jen, thank you for being here. It's great to be able to have this discussion between us. Obviously, you have a lot of experience in working with and supporting the young people at the YMCA. You have well over 200 young residents, don't you? I guess my first question to you is, what impact do you feel that the mental health, whether people have poor mental health or issues, affects the individuals for being able to thrive and certainly go on and live independently, perhaps when they leave the YMCA? So how do you feel that mental health impacts that?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and it can go off into so many angles. And I think the wider point is also, it's not just kind of how it affects our residents here. It's how mental health can impact the community, the wider community as well. I guess there are some differences here. We've got, as you say, over 200 young people. A lot of the residents who live with us, they might have joined us through kind of having experiences that haven't been so pleasant in their really younger years. So they might have experienced traumas, abuse, neglect. They might have substance use, and they might have experienced the criminal justice system. So to begin with, they've already had quite a lot of negative experiences that may have impacted their mental health. And so then when they do come to live here, we do see a lot of our young people, our kind of local young people who find it difficult to learn. They find it difficult to find employment and stay in employment, to maintain relationships. Sometimes even making a decision can be really difficult. So that having the skills to live independently can sometimes feel a really far way away. When we think about mental health, and actually if we have good mental health, we're better able to cope with the stress and setbacks that we experience. We have improved self-esteem, improved confidence. We have a lot of young people here who do experience emotional dysregulation. When something happens, everything is huge, it's really big, and it's understandable that it is, because actually they've not learnt the skills on how to de-escalate, how to regulate their emotions, how to bring themselves back down. So if there's poor mental health, that can be really big, that could be fiery, that can be fights, it could be arguments, it could be self-harm, it could be attempted suicides. I mean, this is really serious stuff with some of our young people. So to be able to address the mental health and work on them, work with them so that they can improve their mental health means that their emotions are more regulated. They can resolve that conflict. They've got the skills to resolve it now. They're able to connect socially with their peers, maybe with family if they have that connection with them. They might have improved concentration, less likely to be overwhelmed, and so more organised, giving them that opportunity for employment. When we looked at our figures in 2024, 2025 from our mental wealth project, we did find that since accessing mental wealth, we had 66% of our residents in purposeful activity, and that's obviously the point of the YMCA is an employment pathway. So for that many people to then engage in positive activities is huge.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, having poor mental health affects every part of day-to-day living, and therefore, can make it really difficult for people to have positive relationships, get into employment, things like that. So absolutely. You've talked a little bit about how that might play out. And we're not just, I guess, talking about young people at the YMCA. We're talking about young people in the community. So you've talked about, potential self-harm, feeling overwhelmed, not being able to make decisions. There's lots of ways that can play out at different kind of severities as well, aren't there? Do you feel, how do you feel people within the YMCA anyway, coping with kind of social anxiety? Have you seen like a decline in social communication, social anxiety? We talked about it the other day, didn't we?
Yeah, I think I definitely have seen a change over the past few years since COVID. There has definitely been a change in our young people's ability to communicate, in their confidence in being around in social situations. Years ago, we'd have a residents' lounge, and the residents would be there. They'd want to be involved. They'd want to be playing games with each other. They'd want to be playing like video games with each other. Now, they only tend to want to do that if they know the group. They don't socialise in the same ways. And when there is the opportunity for socialisation, we're getting a lot of our young people who are expressing that extreme social anxiety. They maybe don't want to attend an activity because there are other people there. It's not just that it's other people they don't even know. There's people, and people are scary. There's this whole new online world. There's gaming, which is great because actually it develops so many other skills as well. So definitely not knocking that. I think gaming is an amazing tool to use, but I think we find some of our young people hide behind it. So we do get a lot of young people who can hide away. And I was thinking about this morning, actually driving in, and just thinking about social media and community. To us, community is really important. And I'm sure that all of you here today have been online at some point if you have access to social media and Facebook and things. Those posts where someone says, "Oh, what's going on? I've seen a helicopter." We've all seen that post, and then people comment. And what got to me, or when I was thinking about it, was how unkind we are to each other. And actually, how many people then just knock that person who's, sometimes they might be being a bit nosy, sometimes they might have a legitimate reason for showing care and concern, but just how unkind we are to each other. And if we're doing that as in a community, so the community, let's say Milton Keynes, our local community, are being unkind to each other, potentially what's happening in our smaller communities. And the YMCA becomes a bit of a bubble. So if the YMCA becomes quite safe because they know where they can go, they know what they can say, they know what feels safe to them, why would anyone want to go outside of that? Because we're seeing, even in day-to-day life, there's lots of things where people just aren't very nice to each other. So yeah, that was just a random thought I had this morning on my drive in. But yeah, we can, as I've already mentioned, there's so many things that play out when there is poor mental health, which I've already mentioned. But yeah, that social anxiety, reduced ability to communicate, they are huge.
And yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And you might have seen the same post I saw yesterday about the helicopter.
I think there's one most days now, isn't there?
Yeah, true. I had that same thought as well. And I think, we're here talking about the mental health, and I know we talk about kind of mental health issues, but one of the things that we're going to talk about in a few minutes is that your mental wealth project at the YMCA. And I loved that spin on the name mental wealth, because we all have mental health. And, we all need to look after our mental health. And so, like you're saying, Jenny, it's not just about whether you recognise that you have poor mental health. I think it's important that as a community, we all look after other people's mental health. So that's a really important, point about being kind and listening and wanting the right thing for people. So obviously, one of the things that we want to highlight in this webinar is the importance of early intervention to support people. And we know, because we hear about it on the news all the time, how difficult it is for a lot of people within our community to access support early enough. So I guess my question is, what would be the potential outcome, let's say, to some of your residents if they now didn't have early intervention and early support for their mental health? How could things escalate, and what have you seen in the past with things escalating for people?
Yeah, I mean, so I'll just go generally for one moment before I go on to the YM. So when we're thinking, I've been really pleased to see recently, actually, there's a lot more push for there to be preventative measures, and I'm loving that because it's what's needed. Because there's already been so many studies that have highlighted and evidenced how actually individuals, if they've been exposed to a lot of the things that our young people have been exposed to, let's say neglect, abuse, microaggressions, for example, that without early intervention, these people can go on to develop significant mental health challenges. There's lots of evidence around things like schizophrenia, but they also could end up in the criminal justice system. They could end up getting arrested, and then they're in the system, and then it's a real difficulty to get out. So in the YMCA, before the mental wealth project, and we'd have some of our young residents who would come and join us, and they were exhibiting some of these traumas, some of these really serious experiences where they may have experienced all those things that I've mentioned before, abuse, neglect, and they're showing signs of mental health that's declining or that's poor. If we do a referral to the mental health services, of course, the person needs to give consent. But then when the mental health services contact them and then they actually say, I don't want to do that anymore, then there's no support offered. And that's through no fault of the NHS or the mental health services. That's just the way that actually right now things work. So then when they're not accessing that support, I have seen some of our young people who have ended up being sectioned. We've seen our people who have maybe stripped down, running around. They might become volatile. We know that that's through fear. We know that's not through them wanting to cause harm to people. It's through them worrying about what they're experiencing themselves. And we can see a really serious decline in mental health, which, had it have been caught sooner, then there could have been a very different outcome. So as an example, following engagement with yourselves through the Mental Wealth Project, we've already seen that 73% feel better able to make positive choices relating to their health. We've had 63% who feel better able to manage in times of crisis. So that's thinking about actually when somebody's thinking about self-harm, suicidal thoughts, rather than needing to call an ambulance or go outside and continue with risky behaviours, they're actually able to regulate themselves again. and a whopping, I will say whopping because I think it's whopping, 60% wouldn't have accessed any mental health support if you guys hadn't been here to support that. And again, that's evidence of our bubble that we have because they feel safe here. They don't want to exit it. That's something for us to work on as an organisation and to create it safer to leave that bubble. But it does show the reality of the YMCA, how safe people are feeling here, but also yeah, the lack of support if they're not leaving.
Thank you so much, Dan. That has been very insightful, and the stats you just put down has been motivating for all of us because we can see the results from the program. We can see how effective it is when young people have access to support and have access to resources that, give them agency over their health. We'll also just pass over to Jane to continue the conversation, and I'll hand over to Jane now to continue. Thank you.
Thanks, Iffy. Thanks for having us here. Over to you, Jen.
Yeah, so really huge thank you for you being here, and that's just in general as well, because like I've kind of ended on my part, actually without the mental health project we wouldn't have seen such a difference in some of our young people that are here at the YM. But Jane, just wondering, could you share a little bit about what you and the team at Makewell do, and what you've actually been able to offer us as part of this project?
Yeah, absolutely. Been my pleasure. So Makewell's been running for just over 4 years. My business has been running for 25 years, but the Makewell Clinic, where we focus on physical and mental health and a lot around neurodiversity, has been running for 4 years. And to be honest, was set up out of pure frustration from my lived experience. I've got 3 adopted daughters who have all turned out to be neurodivergent and all have complex needs, which also affects their mental health. Neurodivergence doesn't mean that they have poor mental health, but they do quite often overlap. So we are a private assessing service for ADHD and autism and for mental health, but the opportunity came to work with you guys on a national lottery funded project called the Mental Wealth. And our team really enjoy being able to be on site with your residents and your team in supporting the residents. So what that looks like in practical terms is we have a big multidisciplinary team within Makewell. That includes psychiatrists, psychologists, social workers, mental health nurses, and we offer a range of services to the residents at the YMCA, which really meets a lot of their lower level needs. So some examples are, we do ADHD and autism screening and assessing. We know that by the very nature of how a lot of people have end up living at the YMCA, there's a lot of undiagnosed people there, and actually that can contribute towards their mental health if they feel they don't understand themselves or other people don't, they get overwhelmed. We have a weekly mental wealth cafe, which has really all the services have taken off really well and been really engaged with the residents, and that's literally a pop-in service, runs for a couple of hours, and the team, the residents can just pop in, have a cup of tea, talk to mental health practitioners. And I think the key here we break down the barriers for these young people. We take the services to where they are, especially the YMCA. A lot of them can't drive, so actually that might be a barrier for them accessing it. So we go to them. Our team are relaxed, informal, and blending so well. So there's an opportunity for people just to check in. And a lot of people go every week just to check in. A lot of people then go and talk more about what's worrying them or the challenges. And then we can refer internally within our other services there, which we do things like one-to-one sessions with our psychotherapist or psychologist, so they can have more intensive work and support with their mental health, looking at, creating strategies. Sometimes that has meant signposting back to the NHS for sort of more long-term support and care. But also running workshops like things to give them strategies like how to support their sleep, how to manage anxiety, breathing workshops, things like that. Sammy here manages all of these different services, and we work closely with obviously your team, and we do some training with your team, and that's been something that I hope has been really beneficial, because while supporting your residents, we're also trying to upskill your team so they can also support the residents in a better and kind of more understanding way of the complexities with some of the residents, or a lot of the residents.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's been really useful just having somebody to go to and say, I've noticed this behaviour, and I'm just wondering what could we do actually to work in a way that best benefits that young person. So behaviour is communication, right? So behaviour is always going to indicate something, and kind of the Makewell team are really great at being able to translate that for us.
I was going to say, I think it's important to recognise that not one size fits all. And that's what's great about being able to create bespoke support.
Yeah, absolutely. And like from our perspective, since the project actually started, the change has been huge just in the building. Campus feels much calmer. Our young people are developing the skills and tools to handle those difficult emotions, as we spoke about earlier. They can regulate themselves emotionally, and as you've pointed out, the staff have people that they can speak to. So I'm just wondering, what have you noticed any particular impact since the mental health project started?
Huge. And obviously I get a lot of feedback from our clinicians and the whole team that support, and I think, as you quite rightly said, I think it's changed the culture at the YMCA. So a lot of you probably wouldn't know that my eldest adopted daughter, when she was 18, I moved her into the YMCA just to gain some independence. Things were difficult at home with her and her sisters. So that was my first introduction to the YMCA. And as you said, Jen, I think, when I used to go in there, you'd hear a lot of arguments, fights, screaming, shouting. It felt a little bit scary, if I'm honest, at times. Now we go in and it feels relaxed, happy, you hear laughter. So it feels like the whole culture has changed. And I think one of the things that we notice with the residents is they're becoming much more emotionally aware of themselves. I think it's helping to reduce the stigma of mental health. So, for example, like we don't call it a crisis cafe because we want people to know you don't have to reach crisis before you come and get help. Just come anyway, because if we can positively influence your mental health, then that we've done a good job. What's been really interesting is that how engaging the residents have been, and actually how open they've been about asking for help. And I think part of that is that they've got to trust our team. We're there, we're non-judgmental, and we're available. And all of those barriers that we've knocked down, really, we've seen a big change in people coming forward and asking for the help, which is amazing. And also, I think it's helped with communication between staff and the residents there. And I guess most importantly, you hear the residents talking about different strategies that they've learned. And I always see it as trying to give somebody a toolbox of strategies. So if they're feeling more anxious one day, they go, oh yeah, okay, I'll try this breathing exercise. Or because actually to live independently, we want them to be able to manage themselves. It's about giving them the skills, isn't it? And we really see a big difference in that and how people are using the language and using the strategies. Amazing.
Yeah, and we're seeing it acted out all the time. So we're grateful for you guys to teaching them that. You mentioned right at the beginning about how neurodivergence doesn't mean automatically that there will be poor mental health, but what impact can it have on mental health?
Yeah, I think, and we see this a lot in the clinic, I see it a lot in my children, and again at the YMCA. I think especially if you're undiagnosed and you're potentially struggling with some of the symptoms of ADHD and or autism, we know a lot of people can have both, then a lot of people can over time feel judged, not good enough. It often affects people's self-confidence because they don't understand themselves very well. Classically with ADHD, there's a kind of often people suffer with what's called RSD, which is rejection sensitive dysphoria, which means they feel like everyone's criticizing them, and it's even a perceived criticism. So for example, if I said, oh, your hair looks lovely today, Jem, it might be that Sammy thinks if she had RSD, oh, mine doesn't look nice. So that can have a real impact on your mental health and well-being and your self-confidence. But also, we know with people that have ADHD or autism, sometimes they can struggle with social anxiety and social exhaustion. And unless they know how their brain's working and understands that, they're not going to be able to put those strategies in place to actually have a better mental health. So we know that people very rarely will just be ADHD or just be autistic. They will often have other what we call comorbidities. I don't like that phrase, but that's what we call it in healthcare. And anxiety and depression can go along with that. And we often find that young adults may well have been on antidepressants for years and years and years because they've gone to their GP with those early signs of depression. But actually, when you talk to them, do they feel like it's helped? Often they say no. And sometimes it's the wrong diagnosis. Sometimes actually it's the ADHD that may well need to be treated. And we see a lot of our patients here at Makewell that end up coming off their antidepressants, start ADHD medication and feel a lot better for it. So it can have a huge impact on mental health.
Thank you. That was really interesting, that part. And so I think we're coming to the end. So before Ife hurries us along, what's your take-home message?
My take-home message is early intervention is always, and not just for the individual, which is the most important part, but also the impact on other services. I mean, we've talked about, some of the stats you said. We know since delivering the mental health service, the ambulance call-outs, for example, have dropped by over 60% to the YMCA for things, as you mentioned before, Jen, self-harming and threats of suicide. You could put that into a financial figure quite easily. In fact, we're hoping to do that. So it's also the wider impact it has on the individuals. So early intervention and definitely trying to reduce the stigma and get more people talking about it, which we are. And that's the very nature of this webinar and people joining us. So reduce the stigma and earlier intervention.
Thank you so much, Jane. That was so insightful. And your takeaways was very spot on because everything has a way of having an impact on both the individual and the community at large. So it's important for all of us to basically create spaces and create environments where, young people can feel supported and also heard, and also create that environment where they're able to perform to their best abilities, essentially. Thank you so much for that. Thank you, Jan, as well. The floor is open for any questions. If you'd like to put it in the chat, you can put it in the chat. If you'd like to raise your hands, you can raise your hands and we would unmute you to ask your questions, or you can unmute yourself, basically. So if you have any questions, you can ask both Jen and Jane and they'll be able to answer. Thank you.
If we've got Andrew's hand up, and we've got DC, whoever DC is.
Hey, Andrew, are you able to mute yourself? Yes,
yeah, I can unmute.
Yeah.
So my question was for both of you. How are you finding, and do you think there is sort of like an impact with poor mental health and the uprising of in artificial intelligence, AI sort of side of things? Because from our side, we're seeing a lot. So I wondered if it was the same for you guys.
Jen, do you want to start?
Interesting. Andrew, can you give me an example? It doesn't have to be a specific.
Sorry, I muted myself again. Yeah, absolutely. So we're finding that young people, instead of relying heavily on staff, which has always been the case for their support, are finding, I suppose, comfort might be the right word, in AI instead, because when they write things into AI, it tells them what they want to hear, and comes from one perspective rather than having a broad sense. Yeah. And we're finding that quite difficult. So I wondered if that was a broader thing or it was just us.
I think I don't think it's just you. It hasn't come to light in the same way here yet, noticeably or explicitly. What I would say is that with your question, I wonder if where we have some young people where there's a barrier to engagement, if that barrier could be AI. It very much could be, and it's something that we'll explore. So thank you for just suggesting that. And one way that I have noticed it is that it is in a way de-skilling people, because, for example, we are noticing that if somebody sends us an email and maybe they just want to share something that's happened, you can tell it's been AI written. So I think it's de-skilling our young people from being able to use language in that way. But in terms of emotional health, I think it's very widespread that it is being used. We just need to find the evidence that it's happening here, and we will look for it. Jane?
I think, I haven't had really any concerns or any feedback from clinicians that work with the residents over the YMCA, or indeed our families and patients here. And I wonder, certainly at the YMCA, if maybe it's less of an issue at the moment because we are there and at hand. And I wonder whether more people are using AI if they don't have that kind of almost instant access of where to go. So that's the more instant kind of answer or solution for them. Whereas actually, you know, and one of the things that Weekly Cafe has been so successful, because we do get a lot of people that come each week, and it's almost like they feel safe and they feel held because they know come Thursday they'll get to talk to us again. So I don't know if that makes a difference, but we certainly haven't had it highlighted as a big issue, although absolutely something to be aware of.
Thank you so much, Jane. Dr. Cynthia, if you're able to unmute yourself, you can ask a question.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thank you for the engaging conversation. My question is around protocol post young people leaving YMCA. Is there any protocol in place to kind of support their mental health post transition, or are they just allowed to go into the world and just, figure it out some way or some form?
Yeah, really good. Really good question. Sorry if I cut you off then, I was too eager to answer clearly. Really great question. So currently with the YMCA we do have a pathway. So we have a stage 1, a stage 2 and stage 3. Stage 3 is where our residents or young people would kind of progress to once they're in. It's effectively independent living. So it's where they are usually in full-time employment, and following that, there is the potential, if there's any space in our move on accommodation that we have in the community. So if our young people are following the pathway and exiting through stage 3, then quite often they don't necessarily need support from us. However, regardless on what stage they leave, we are still able to speak to them on the phone. We have on occasion, in certain instances, remained in contact and offered visits. Now we don't do outreach, but when we can see there's a potential risk, we would remain in contact until we're able to refer to other services that are in the community, because there are other great charities and outreach services in Milton Keynes who we refer on to. If again there's significant risk or concern, we have a really good relationship with adult social care. If our young people really are still struggling when they move on, they can potentially move back to campus as well. All of that would be taken into consideration. So sometimes it may feel as though they do have to leave and they're kind of on their own, and to a degree that may happen, but we would never kind of turn our backs on someone. If they needed it, we would look to see what other support there is in the community and signpost.
Amazing. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much, then. As we close out, I do have one more question for you, both Jen and Jane. How might society benefit from providing young people with better access to mental health support and resources?
How would society benefit?
Yes, how would society benefit?
Oh, in so many ways. So again, putting the individual first, we would have more thriving adults who are living independently, potentially obviously then being able to work and be successful in the workplace. I think, again, looking at resources which are widely stretched anyway, we would potentially save money there. And I think it's like lots of things. When you think about physical health, we think about prevention is better than cure. And I always try and relate that to this. Actually, if we can catch people at a low level and give them the skills and the support, then hopefully we'll stop their mental health deteriorating and escalating, and then having that wide impact to them and therefore also on society.
Yeah, I agree with everything that Jane said. I will come at it from a different angle as well. So I think, like I said earlier, early intervention, prevention, let's think about a cycle that could happen. Young person experiences some really awful things at home. They have very insecure attachments due to this. They grow up, they may not receive any mental health support, potentially end up in prison, come out of prison, they have a family, they have a child. They haven't learnt the skills yet on how to actually parent that child, not through any fault of their own necessarily, unless they haven't agreed to kind of access support, but because of actually what they've learnt, they can't do anything that they don't know yet, so they haven't got those skills. So by actually providing younger people with better access to mental health, we are more likely going to have an improved future for our children of tomorrow as well.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, and thank you. I know we have a question, not a question in the chat, but also more like a statement. Yasmin said, as I work for the YMCA South Midlands, I have seen the positive impact Makewell have made on the young people we support, both in Milton Keynes and in Northampton campuses. Really enjoyed the session. Oh, thank you so much, Yasmin.
Oh, thank you.
We'll hand over to Robin for closing remarks. Thank you so much for being here, everyone.
I think though Tara has put her hand up once now. She's frantically typing. I feel like we want to hear Tara.
Okay.
We'll hear Tara.
Oh, how do you get young people in touch with Makewell? Where is Tara? That's the question she wrote in the.
So yeah, absolutely. You can go straight to our website, and there's all like contact pages to come straight to us. So our website is wemakewell.co.uk. And equally, if you forget that, then anyone can reach out to myself, Sammy, or Robin on LinkedIn. We're all over social media. So Jane Lambert, Samantha King, or Robin Drew.
Sorry, I've got a follow-up question. I've just realised my mic's off. Is it referral only, or can we just signpost to you?
So we're a private, so other than the work we do with the YMCA, we're a private practice. So it's self-referral, or organisations can refer to us as well. So that's not a problem.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
I see that Sammy has just put our website in the chat as well, so
Oh, thank you.
you can check it out there. But yeah, we would like to thank everybody for joining us today and being a part of this really important conversation around mental health and youth voice. We've heard some really valuable insights from Jane and Jen today about the different challenges young people face, the importance of feeling heard, and the difference that strong supportive relationships can make. Thank you again to the YMCA, to Jane and to Jen, and to Iffy as well for making this possible today. It's been really great. You will get some certificates issued to you in 7 working days, which is great. So we can share that onto LinkedIn and talk about the conversations as well.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. And we'll also be sending feedback surveys to everyone who attended today. It would be greatly appreciated if you're able to fill those out. Thank you for coming. Have a lovely evening. Thank you again. Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.